So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining the second webinar of the Co-VAL project. Thanks in particular for joining at such a particular moment for many of us. It seems a bit hard to focus on topics such as co-creation when countries are shutting down, but of course, one of the ways we have to react to the situation is to continue with our life and our jobs as much as we can. And actually the topic of co-creation, which seems so abstract, in reality really has to deal with very important dimensions, such as having access to easy to use technological tools or cultivating the trust of citizens. So topics that are really at the heart of the present crisis. So without further ado, let us start, because today we have an exceptional panel of speakers to discuss the importance of metrics and co-creation in digital government. Here you should be able to see my presentation now. The topic of today is the state of co-creation, how design thinking, user centricity, and interoperability are driving a revolution at government at local and national level. My name is David Osimo. I'm Director of Research at the Lisbon Council, who is partner in this Co-VAL project funded by Horizon 2020, which pursues 4 goals: to provide a theoretical framework of co-creation, to measure and monitor co-creation, to investigate the impact and the value co-creation in digital transformation, service design, living labs, public-private partnership, and to generate sustainable policy and practice impact. Now you see here in bold the 2 goals that are more relevant for today: discussing metrics, not only discussing, but actually providing metrics, and generate impact in public administration policy and practice. A little bit of overview of what we have done so far. We have done several policy briefs that you might have read on local government, on co-creation, on public data opportunity, and then of course today on the state of co-creation. We have held high-level meetings. Here you can see Director General of Digit, Gertrud Ingestad, the present Minister for Innovation in Italy, Paola Pisano, and Mike Bracken, former lead of the Government Digital Service. And we obviously today, in reality, we are here online, but we were supposed to be in Milan for the Digital Cities Summit. And we will be there in a couple of months when things get back to normal. So what are we going to talk today? Is the structure of today is the following. After my introduction, we are lucky enough to have Roberta Cocco, the Deputy Mayor of Municipality of Milan. Despite the situation, she's here at work and presenting what Milan is doing and what Milan will do in the future. We have Kostan Kapsoulopoulos, Policy Officer from the Government and Trust Unit, who will present what the European Commission is doing, not only at European level, but towards the member states, the regions, and local authorities. And we have a keynote by Goss, lead of service design at the famous UK government digital services, which is a reference for many of us in this field. The 4th point is my presentation of the report on the state of co-creation that you should have all received before the meeting. And I will provide a brief outline of results. And last but not least, we are having a Q&A and open discussion at the end. So please feel free to intervene. There are some people who are connected over the phone and obviously will not be able to submit questions. Just to clarify, you are able to submit questions through the app. You will be able to see a question button, and we will take questions at the end. But we're also monitoring Twitter and the Twitter hashtag of Co-VAL for people who are connecting over the phone. So, without further ado, I will now leave the word to Roberta Cocco, Deputy Mayor for Digital Transformation and Citizen Services at the Municipality of Milan. Roberta, I will now make you a presenter so that you can talk.
Okay. Thank you very much, David. Hello, everyone. I am really sad that this great event shouldn't be taken in Milan. You know, the emergency we are facing, and so it's really hard time for us, but we are all working to make it in the best possible way. And so we are working all together to face this terrible situation, trying to leverage technology and innovation in order to reach all the people, to share communication, and to also share all the tools to make people try to have a kind of normal life at their homes. Do you see my screen?
Absolutely, perfectly.
Okay, well. So I can try to begin. So let me share with you which is our vision. We want to develop a digital transformation plan which has a specific goal to put the citizen at the center. So everything we are doing considering the value that we are offering to our citizens. So in a few words, as you can see in my slide, we want to make Milan more digital. We want to make Milan more inclusive, more mobile, because we know that most of our citizens have a mobile phone in their pockets. We want to be open. We want to attract people from abroad, and we want to offer everyone the same level of opportunity. And of course, we want to use technology to make our city more and more sustainable. In our digital transformation plan, we have two main pillars. On one side, the digital culture, on the other side, the technology. And we are deeply convinced that these two pillars should work together because they are complementary. And so on one side, we work for a very strong and deep technological program in order to offer a solid infrastructure to our city and also service, digital services to all our citizens. From the other side, we want to share as much as possible the digital culture. Unfortunately, Italy is very far from a real digital usage. We still are suffering a digital gap, but we want to be the example for our nation. We want to work with all other cities to boost the technology. And one of our key assets, especially in Milan, is to leverage public-private partnership. So we are working with all our stakeholders, association, foundation, private organization, public organization, schools, university, researchers. We want to work with everyone to boost the digitalization of our city and, of course, of our country. One of our key projects is the Digital Citizen Folder. This is a personal repository that every single citizen might find in our website, in the municipality website, and it is very, very simple to go on the website to register and to get personal certificates, family information, taxes document, payments, also enrollment to schools. And we are really proud that in 2019, last year, overall, we had more than 2 million views. This is an example of what citizens get as a service, but behind this project, there is a huge interoperability plan. So behind this, that seems to be simple, there is a hard work of more than 3 years to get all the possibility to get information immediately from different data sources. In these slides, you have at a glance our website. As you might see, it is very simple. It is very easy to use for anyone. So there are no images, videos, and everything. We have put all the marketing stuff of the city in another website, which is Yes Milano, which is managed by our marketing teams. In this website, which is the main municipality website, people can find services, and so they can immediately get what they need. And as I mentioned before, in the back office, we have done quite a huge work of putting together all the open sources we needed to offer the services. We do not know, we don't want that citizens know what's the trouble behind the curtains. We want that people get the information and the value and the service they need immediately from their mobile phone or from their website. The task of technology, it's up to us. So we have to manage technology, as I told you, behind the curtains. And it's quite an interesting name that we have already connected more than 200 APIs, and we are working to put together an entire world of applications. What I was trying to describe is our way to develop a smart lake. So area after area, so different directions are giving us their own data so that we can collect all the data and try to make a unique repository of data that we can easily get when we need it to transform the data we have into a service. I'm really proud, and I want to mention here that we are also part of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights. This amazing coalition that was formed by New York, Amsterdam, and Barcelona a couple of years ago wants to connect all the cities that are working through data to get services to their citizens. And so I really want to mention this project because now we have more than 80 cities in this coalition. And if the Milano Digital Week would have happened, one of the key tracks would have been addressed to this very important topic. From our side, the Coalition for Digital Rights has the aim at offering all the citizens the same level of opportunity, even through digital. So, and let me go back to my first statement. I told you that we are working on two different pillars, digital and culture. And this is very important here because if we want to develop new services, new digital services, at the same time, we have to be sure that we are offering the same level of digital education to all citizens, because we do not have to use digital to exclude anyone. We want to use digital, to leverage digital, to get people the same level of digital rights. My last topic is to show you how we are working for data internally, so within the administration. And so 3 years ago, we began a project to collect all the data we could to understand how the different streams of the municipality were working. So we wanted to aggregate all the data feed that we could, and we also wanted to make those data available for all the internal people, the managers, the directors, the politicians, the policymakers. So we wanted to develop a dashboard that might be useful for internal people, specifically to take important decisions. And so we have produced this dashboard. You can see different tiles. These different tiles are connected to a specific area of the municipality, and it is a new level of the data lake that I mentioned before. And so all these different, you can see the registry office, taxes payment, education, and so on. What is very important is that this internal dashboard might be easily accessed by the mobile phone. So here you can see a snapshot. I can easily show on my mobile phone. This dashboard is very easy to get, and in an immediate way, you can get all the information. Every month, we produce an overview of the month with the most important KPIs that we decided together with the other directors and other deputy mayor, considering the most important ones. So how many people reached our website, how many people attended a service that we were offering, how many people asked for certificates, how many people were queuing at the registry offices, the timing of waiting in the queue, and the transaction for payment. So all the KPIs that we consider the most important ones are summarized in this dashboard. And we can also get deeper and get graphics. We can make comparison. We can understand which part of the cities are performing better than others, and so on. This graph is very important because it shows the number of requests at the registry office for certificates in person or through digital. And you see how month after month these numbers are increasing, and it's quite interesting to make analysis behind this graph. So the internal, this dashboard is also giving us a quick overview of the payments. And you know that for a municipality, it's very important to maintain control how taxes are going, how payments for fines, for example, or other payments. And you have here, day after day, the exact amount of money that are coming to our offices through digital payments. So this is my last slide. I really hope I gave you the idea of the work we are doing. We are cooperating with a lot of great organizations, and I am really, really happy and proud that the Lisbon Council is working with us to put together this work and offer it and share it to other countries. At the very beginning of our mandate, I launched a project which is called Digital Bridge. And so we already set up many digital bridges with many cities around the world, New York, Chicago, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Tallinn, Tel Aviv, and so on. But we definitely want to keep on working with the rest of Europe. I think that data are very important, but the data are nothing if we can't compare with other countries or other cities. So I really would like to keep on working with the Lisbon Council to make our approach available for other countries and other cities, but above all, to support a European project that may give us the opportunity to compare our data to others and to offer our support in any new project that you might want to share with us. Thank you very much.
Roberta, thanks so much for this great presentation. We have plenty of questions. I ask for patience. We will put the question at the end, otherwise we will never end. But I particularly love the emphasis on the numbers, and this is exactly what we are going to talk about. Now, let me give the word to the European Commission. Costas, can you hear us? Costas is connected.
Yes, I can hear you very well, and I was really impressed by the plan that Roberta actually presented. First of all,
yes, go ahead.
First of all, to introduce myself, my name is Kostas Kapsuropoulos, and I'm working at the Directorate General Connect, which is dealing with the digital policies of the European Commission, and more specifically in the unit e-Government and Trust. I would like to thank you for this opportunity, and also to express once again my consideration that this event is taking place under these difficult conditions for all of us. But as I said in the beginning, I'm impressed and really happy from what I've heard from Roberta, from the plans that she's planning to do for Milano. It is one of the best practice examples that we want to flourish around Europe. We want more cities to have this example to make their digital transformation happen. And also, that's the good thing of Co-VAL project, and I would like to congratulate all the contributors of Co-VAL, because it can do three things. It's an excellent example of a project that supports, that shows how research can support policy. It can feed in with its policy recommendations to the future, to the priorities that we are preparing now, and I'm going to expose to you the priorities about digital government in the future that the European Commission is preparing and has also announced some of them. And also, thirdly, Co-VAL is a very good platform, as I see, to create opportunities to talk to each other physically, but also in digital means, as we are doing now. So, co-creation is, which is the main objective of Co-VAL project, is at the heart of our e-government policy of the European Union. As you know, our main driver for e-government policy the last years is the e-government action plan, which aims to create collaboration, to create interaction, to create inclusion, and to put citizens at the center of public services. We want collaboration across public administrations all around Europe at national, European, national, local, and regional level. And we want them to interact with citizens and businesses every day. Now, the progress that we have achieved the last years is not a perception, but a reality in Europe. Today, 64% of EU citizens choose to get in touch with their public administration online. Nearly 7 out of 10 public services are mobile friendly, enabling users to access public services anytime, anywhere. And this data come from our e-government benchmark that we produce, a yearly e-government benchmark report that we produce here at the European Commission. Borderless interoperable public services and the digital exchange of data following the once-only principle go hand in hand. Together with our digital identity framework under EIDAS regulation, they have been drivers of the European e-government policy over the last years. Let me explain to you a bit more about EIDAS. You know the regulation, mainly it's about electronic identification means, national electronic identification means, through which citizens and businesses across Europe can connect and access online government services around Europe. Already, since this February, European citizens and companies can use their national EID schemes from 8 member states to reach government services across borders thanks to the EIDAS regulation. This concerns Germany, Italy, Estonia, Croatia, Spain and Luxembourg, Belgium and Portugal. More than 60% of the EU population are already covered by national notified EID schemes. But we know that we have a lot of things to do in the future. We need to shift up the gear from e-government to digital government. And that's what the European Commission is doing with its effort and with its new proposals. As you mentioned also in your survey that I saw, the Co-VAL survey, co-creation, everybody's talking about co-creation, but we have to shift up the gear to make real processes that are really digital. Now, in February, last February, the European Commission has published its European Digital Strategy for the Future. It has 4 pillars: technology that works for people, a fair and competitive digital economy, an open, democratic and sustainable digital society, and Europe as a global digital player. As regards all the 4 pillars, public administrations have a key role to play, and digital transformation of government has a key role to play in all 4 pillars. Some of the policies and tools that we are going to do in order to make these policies tangible is a new interoperability strategy for public administration, the revision of the EIDAS regulation to improve its effectiveness, and also creating an internal market for data. And I heard very, very clearly what Roberta mentioned before about the need to share data between public administrations across Europe. That's what we are going to try to do. And specifically, there is a proposal, which is going to be further elaborated, of course, to create a common European data spaces for public administration to improve transparency and accountability of public spending and spending quality, fighting corruption, both at EU and national level, and also, I add, local and regional, and to address law enforcement needs and support the effective application of EU law, enabling innovative GovTech, RegTech, and legal tech applications supporting practitioners as well as other services of public interest. These are very, very important priorities, but in order to put them in practice, we need your support. We need everybody's support. We need your feedback, first of all. We need the feedback from local and regional authorities. We need the feedback from national authorities. We need everybody. We need stakeholders, civil society, think tanks. We need the public recommendations of projects like Co-VAL, because together we can make this policy to shift up a gear to this policy. Now, at the same time, we have trying to give also means to our policies. That's why I would like to talk to you about the funds under a Digital Europe program. It's the first comprehensive Digital Europe program to fund specific actions under the next multi-annual framework, which is the future budget of the European Union, which is currently discussed, and it is about funding for actions from 2021 and 2027. Interoperability of public administrations and trust are in two pillars of the Digital Europe program. Now, as I said, in this effort, we need your feedback. Every day, we are open to discuss and listen to you. And it's, for us, the best way to connect to connect effectively the European, national, regional, and local level to shape Europe's digital governance of the future. Thank you very much.
Kostas, thank you very much for your important words, and we are very happy to provide input and feedback, and we hope this is just the beginning of a greater collaboration with you. So thank you very much. We have many questions. We have also Roberta, who has to leave and go into the board meeting of the Milan City Council to discuss how to allow greater digital collaboration. Roberta, before you leave, first I would like to thank you so much and express our solidarity to the city of Milan. Thank you for all that you're doing. There are a couple of questions, but if you have to leave, I will pose them later to your colleagues.
Just one question, David. Just one question so I can answer.
Okay, one of the questions is, how do you deal with the citizens' awareness of these services? How do you make this service known and used? How do you communicate with citizens and involve them?
Yeah, that's correct. It's one of our key points. It is very hard because we are trying to use classical communication tools and new communication tools. So we go out with everything we can do from an institutional point of view. So we have the communication through papers, through our screens around the city, and so on. So, for example, for the Citizen Digital Folder, we had quite a huge campaign, but at the same time, we are leveraging a lot the new social media. So we have a newsletter which has more than 300,000 people receiving it every day. It's very, very simple, only few points, a few bullet points, and if you're interested, you click and get more information. And so we are using the social media a lot. We leverage also social media campaign, and we are trying to ask all our partners to make communication for us. So 3 levels: classical communication from the institutional point of view, social media leverage, and leveraging partners, I mean private and public partners, to share our key messages with us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Roberta.
I am very, very sorry, but we have, as David mentioned, in 15 minutes, we have the committee with the mayor, so the board of the city, but I leave you in very good hand because there is one person, Paolo Sabatini, from my staff, and he is in charge of international digital activities, and so he will stay with you until the end, and I'm sure he can also answer your question. Thank you very much, David. Thank you to the Lisbon Council. Thank you to Konstantin, and I'm ready to keep on working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roberta. And believe it or not, we're not even halfway through the webinar, and we have more speakers coming. And the next speaker is particularly important. Anna Goss comes from the Government Digital Service, and she's in charge of service design. So who better to tell us about the reality of deploying digital design at scale inside government. So I will now give you the floor, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. My name's Anna Goss. I'm from London, and I'm very, very sorry not to be able to be with all of you in person this morning in Milan. Hopefully, we'll see you there in May. And I'll cut straight to the chase. I work for the Government Digital Service. I'll call it GDS in the next 10 minutes. We're part of the Cabinet Office, which is one of the UK's 24 ministerial departments. Cabinet Office is at the centre of government. There's about 800 people working at GDS, so designers, developers, product managers, writers, policy people, and more besides. We all work in agile, multidisciplinary teams and really prioritise kind of co-creation with users and working in a kind of design thinking centered way. I joined GDS to lead design on our digital identity program, gov.uk Verify, which is part of the eIDAS scheme that Kostas mentioned. And after leading the design team there for 18 months last year, I joined our international team where we work with other governments around the world to help with digital transformation. So it was great to hear Roberta's work in Milan from that perspective. At GDS, everything that we do is intended to help government work better for users. So everything that we do is built around user needs. You might know us from a website called gov.uk, where we brought 1,884 different websites from different organizations into one place. All those websites were slightly different, and it could be hard for users to find the thing that they needed. So we brought them all together in one place and launched gov.uk back in 2012. We still run gov.uk. It's now the primary place where the relationship between the citizen and state happens. It's relied on by millions of people every single day to access vital government services. So I'm going to talk a bit more about gov.uk and what it means for delivering outcomes and services to citizens, businesses and residents in a moment. But first, I'm going to talk a bit about service design, then a bit more about gov.uk and UK government, and then some building blocks that have helped us to do this consistently and sustainably at scale. So first, a bit about services and what I believe service design to be. The simple answer and the definition that we use most in UK government is that its service is something that helps someone to do something. So in government, that might mean renewing a passport, registering to vote, or to go fishing, because you do need a license to go fishing in the UK. And in the private sector, a well-designed service is a competitive advantage. And in the public sector, really, it's we have to do it. It's non-negotiable, because most of what government does is provide services. Government's the oldest service provider in the UK. In the UK, we've had a civil service for over 150 years. And with that history comes a lot of challenges. There's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of 19th century organizational design, really. And government services are often split into tiny pieces. Lots of isolated transactions, products and content provided by different parts of government that need to be used together by a user to achieve their goal. One of the big issues that we have is that many 21st century services are not designed for 21st century channels like the internet. So maybe they're most optimized for the days when a user could walk into a post office and say, I want to start a business, and someone there would help them to fill out all the forms and so on and so forth. Now we ask users to self-serve much more. So service design is the activity of working out which of those pieces need to fit together, asking how well they meet user needs and rebuilding them from the ground up so that they do, and so that they make sense to a user without that kind of helping hand from a knowledgeable person. We've been taking service design in UK government properly seriously for about 6 to 8 years. We started with what was called our exemplar services, which was 25 services that we wanted to transform. So things like renewing a passport, which you can now do pretty much entirely online, including uploading a photo that you take with your mobile phone, or apply for lasting power of attorney for if somebody becomes unwell and they want a trusted friend or family member to manage their finances or their health preferences. And it's really grown from there in the last 6 to 8 years. There's now around 1,000 designers working in government building services on gov.uk. So we've got those 1,000 designers, but they're not all in one building at GDS. They're distributed across government. UK government has a distributed model, so GDS builds central tools, platforms to make building services easier, and departments build services. So while gov.uk might look like a single website, it's actually designed and delivered by hundreds of service teams from 24 different departments. There's teams all around the country, all working independently and at the same time. And gov.uk brings together those 700 plus government services into one place. So services are things like register as a childminder or view and share your driving license, And like I said, those services are built by the responsible department. So for example, register as a childminder is built by Ofsted, and view or share your driving license is built by the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Agency, or DVLA. This leads us to one of the main challenges in government. It's set up in silos. So each department is run separately. They might do things slightly differently or maybe really differently, and they probably don't share data between them. This makes things a little bit simpler for government to chop things up this way, but it doesn't really make any sense for users. Because we believe that if you want to do something with government, you shouldn't have to understand government. You shouldn't need to know which part of government you need to speak to, especially because often you might need to speak to more than one part of government. So for example, if you're starting a business in the UK, you'll deal with the Department for Work and Pensions and HMRC at a minimum, and more departments than that, depending on what your business is. But those departments might not be set up to work together to make that process really easy for you. Because of those silos, then service design in government is a little bit like archaeology, just digging around to find the pieces of a service and the humans that are working on them, and then working out how all those pieces fit together. Once we've done that, we can work out who should be talking to who, and together we can start to redesign how that service should be delivered to better meet user needs. A year or so ago, we launched a new interaction pattern called Step by Step. It surfaces all of the transactions that might fit together to make an end-to-end service as users recognize them, and it works across those government silos once we've done that archaeology work to find out who's responsible for each part of the service. So here's an example. On the left, these are the bits of government that you'd need to interact with if someone close to you dies, so at least 4 different departments. On the right is the step-by-step pattern for what to do if someone dies. So we created a single design for all these transactions to help create a joined-up experience for users. Here's another example of the step-by-step. This is for learning to drive. So DVLA, our Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, they spend about £19 million a year answering phone calls about how to do a thing, and a quarter of their casework is caused by people filling in the wrong form. The pattern is designed to help solve those kinds of problems for government by making it clear where you are in an overall process and orienting you back to previous steps before you do the wrong thing. And structuring our services more clearly like this doesn't only help people using gov.uk directly. Be able to see on the right hand side a Google snippet of the step-by-step. Google picked this up automatically a week after we put it live, so it means that people can find out what they need to do and not even visit gov.uk in the first place. So that's one thing that helps users to orient themselves in government, but our services are still too fragmented. We don't have a clear view of journeys throughout gov.uk because of those different service teams across government building services individually. So this gives you an idea of the current simplified architecture that sits below that kind of gov.uk brand. So first, thinking about departmental silos, each department builds their services to connect under the gov.uk brand. And then think about that in data terms. We've got 24 ministerial departments, each of which have their own data sets, which in many cases aren't easily shareable with other departments, even if they relate to something relatively simple and with common use, like a company's tax record. Then you can extend that thought to the silos within departments. Large departments like the Department for Work and Pensions or the Tax Office, for example, can hold up to 100 different data sets for different services and policy areas. So you're left with a picture of fragmented data sets and systems across government. So we're starting to think of a new way of operating, bringing together data analytics across the governmental estate. This is a huge challenge and one that I believe will fall behind the rest of the world if we don't tackle it head on. We want to bring together service analytics, qualitative research, and data sets held by departments. And it's a problem that I see being worked on proactively around the world, from Colombia to North Macedonia, and we're just at the beginning. Gov.uk works brilliantly now if a user knows what they need or want to do with government, like renewing your passport. But the next big challenge is to better help users with the things that they don't realise they need to do, or to help them to get to the next stage of their journey. That might be things like sustaining a business in the early years of trading, buying a house, or having a child. They're not discrete singular transactions, but they're processes. Gov.uk is good at transactions, but it's not yet good at complex interactions and longer term services. So that's where we're going. Now I want to talk a bit about what's helped us to get here, which will also help us hopefully as we move forward. The first thing that's really important is communities. So communities are people working on the same thing together and sharing stories. It's not always easy working in government, and sometimes it can feel like we're set up to work against each other. Everyone's got their own priorities, and communities help to break that feeling down. So in design in government, that means a cross-government Slack channel, so a web chat for everyone. Cross-government meetups every 3 months where designers in different departments get together and listen to talks from other people working in government. Cross-government mailing lists, monthly calls to discuss a design challenge. So all these things that are designed to bring people together and break down those silos. We've also been doing work on something called service communities. So for example, people who are all part of a start a business service, even if they're from different departments, getting together and collaborating. Another thing that's been hugely valuable has been platforms. We've talked a lot over the years about government as a platform, including gov.uk Notify, Pay, Registers. And I want to talk about a slightly newer thing. This is the design system. It launched last July, and it's a library of fully documented styles, components, and design patterns that help hundreds of teams in government efficiently build usable and accessible services on gov.uk. It's totally open source, and it helps designers across government solve interaction design problems that are unique to their service and not to have to worry about problems that have been solved before. And finally, common standards have been huge for UK government. Lots of governments globally use laws, and we tend to bias towards standards. They help us massively with consistency and designing at scale. So services built in departments have to meet the service standard, which you can see on this poster, before they can go live on gov.uk. So we have things like the service standard, the technology code of practice, which is around what technology you should be using and best practice there, and the design principles as well. And those mean that teams across government know what the standards are. We also have the service manual, which is there to help teams meet those standards. So all these things help with what we think of as delivering good, sustainable services. And those proactive user journeys that I mentioned before and thinking about whole problems in this way are a manifestation is something that we've been saying for a long time about service design, that we need to be working from end to end, front to back, and across every channel. So end to end, from when a user starts trying to achieve a goal to when they finish, front to back, involving the citizen-facing service, as well as internal systems and processes and policy and organizational and financial and governance structures, and every channel. So I've talked a lot about online, but we also need to be thinking about phone, paper, and face-to-face, not least because not all of our users will be able to use the web. Every designer in government is in the business of delivering outcomes, not transactions. So not just making it easy as possible to get the things they need from government, but also ensuring that we reduce failure demand and that policies can be effectively implemented for the government of the day. That means we need to keep pace with rising expectations and changes in technology. So that also means constant investment in our digital and data capability. So that's to say that the job here is to show that digital government really is just government. We're building sustainable, well-designed services, both user-facing and internally, making both using and delivering services simpler. Ultimately, that reduces taxpayer spend on services, and I think it's something like 80% of the cost of government in the UK is spent delivering services. I've seen some really great work on this around the world in the past year as well. I'm really excited to work in a world where we start shaping government around users and not the other way around, and I hope all of you are too. Thank you very much.
Anna, thanks so much for sharing your real-life experience. Obviously, we're running a little bit late, and but I think everyone recognizes that this is very much worth it. So I would like to take at least one question before we go on, and I promise that we will be finished by 11:20. I will be very short in my presentation. Anna, there is one question from Jenny Nelson. Is there a step-by-step design template for UK local authorities? How do you deal with local authorities? So
local authorities is interesting. We have a team in our building, the national team, who work a lot with local authorities up and down the country. Step by step, I think it's now part of the design system. So that's open and on the web, so other people can go and look at it. And while we haven't, there's a lot of local government departments who build on gov.uk existing kind of patterns and so on. But local government municipalities do maintain their own websites, so that they're not on gov.uk. That said, if local governments want to use step-by-steps, they are more than welcome to do so. And I know that Kate, who's the service designer who was working on that pattern, has been collaborating an awful lot with different local governments up and down the country. We were due actually to have a visit this morning from Croydon Council, where the old head of gov.uk, Neil Williams, now is the head of digital there. So we're collaborating quite actively with local councils, and yeah, kind of looking forward to seeing what different municipalities up and down the country are doing with these patterns that we share quite openly.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We will now move on to the last presentation by myself. So thank you very much, Anna. I hope you can stay with us in case there are additional questions. Let me share my screen with you. So, apologies. I will present the key insight that is contained in the policy brief that we launched today, which is the state of co-creation. And it starts building on what Costa was saying with the problem of adoption in government. It is true we have had some dramatic progress. You can see on the left the different percentage of adopters in e-commerce and e-government, with e-government lagging behind, but lately catching up. Yet with when you look at full transaction, full service delivery, we only have 36% of e-government, of citizens in Europe using and making online transactions. Now, the interesting thing is that there are huge differences across country, and we have cases like Estonia and Denmark and UK where it's much higher, 74 and 51. In particular, in the UK, it really took up with a very strong progress over the last years. So the important thing is, if you build service around the need of users, you encounter adoption. But who adopts co-creation really? And what is co-creation in the first place? You know, we all talk about this concept. First, Co-VAL came up with a very clear definition, and we distinguish. One point is clear: co-creation is not just about having the citizens in a group deciding what needs to be done. It is a much broader set of tools, including intrinsic co-creation, which basically means looking at how citizens interact, using the data from their interaction without actually asking, without having an active participation of citizens. And this is, for instance, what Anna has showed, a plethora of tools that we can use to see how citizens interact and iterate the service delivery. And extrinsic co-creation, where citizens take an active role in co-designing and co-producing the citizens and business. And by the way, Denmark has a very strong tradition of involving citizens and business in the design of the service from the early stage. And as a result, not only they have high adoption of digital government services by citizens, but they have a lot of supply of digital government toolkit, tools, software modules by the private sector, because the private sector co-invests in the delivery of digital government. So co-creation is key. And now what we did in Co-VAL, what our partners did, is an extensive survey of public administration in Europe. We have answers from 1,000 public administration in Europe about how they use co-creation, what they do with it, and what are the results. And what emerged clearly is that, first, a vast majority of public administrations say that they involve users, they do co-create, they involve users in the delivery of the survey. 85.2 of public administration having innovated in the last years, they have actually used co-creation. But when we look at a little bit more in detail, first we see that co-creation delivers benefits, and you have here on the horizontal line the level of benefits, and on the vertical the intensity of adoption. So the more you use it, the more variety of methods you use, the greater benefit you draw upon. And if you want to have a high benefit, you really need to use the full set of tools. However, when we look at what public administration do, they do not use the full set of tools. Actually, they tend not to use the most advanced design techniques, such a prototype of user research. If you can see here on the left that tools such as brainstorming are very much used, but when you look at actual advanced design thinking methods, the uptake is much lower, less than 40%. And the same thing when you look at the source of innovative ideas. The vast majority of cases, the source is public administration itself. Less than 10% of respondents of public administration declare that the idea came from the external realm, so citizens of business. So while in general there is a high adoption of co-creation, and when you adopt the full set of methods, you actually deliver high benefits. In reality, public administration tend to use a limited set of methods and certainly not the most advanced design thinking tools. So there is work to be done. And in particular in local authorities, which paradoxically are at the forefront of delivering digital government service, they deal with services to citizens and to real social services. In reality, they use these tools less than national bodies. And at the moment, we don't have advanced analysis on the reason of this, but what is clear is they use less methods and they tend to use especially less most advanced methods, such as prototyping. So there is a gap. But this is the overview. Now let's look a little bit more in detail, and that's what the policy brief does. What concretely happens in the member states, and the policy brief is based on the survey, but is also based on the Co-VAL dashboard, which is an innovative tool to gather evidence on and from the member states, and also from a pilot of 5 cities which accepted to collaborate. And let's look in a structured way and what they do in a systematic way on co-creation. And this is the link to the dashboard you can see, but to make a long story short, let me just give you an overview. So what is happening in the member states and in the cities? On co-creation, we have several countries putting co-creation in their digital strategy or adopting co-creation methods in their delivery of services. Many countries have implemented guidelines and principles, and we have heard from the UK. However, these principles are often optional. These guidelines are tools in support, but they are not compulsory. But the UK and Poland have introduced some method to actually implement and and to ensure compliance with these guidelines and principles. Poland in particular has linked the explicit user research to funding through the structural funds. We also see a lot of activity of an experimental policy making, creating labs, creating experiments. Finland is certainly the leader in this field. We are all familiar with the universal basic income experiment, but also cities such as Amsterdam and Athens. And a lot of citizens' idea online platforms where citizens can propose ideas for policies and services. This is what co-creation means in the member states and in the cities. When it comes to interoperability, a lot of activity on base registries. Actually, all countries are active, but we mentioned here the most advanced one. All countries are active on Open Data Portal, and a lot of countries are working on delivering API and cities too. So for both open data and base registries. When it comes to skills, to building competencies, what member states are doing is typically building digital teams, taking in people from the outside, often from the business services, and bringing them. And I think Anna is one example of that. They also build communities of designers inside and outside government, try to build really a culture of design inside government through community building. And probably the Netherlands is here the leader with their user centricity community. And not a lot, but some countries do have training program on design and co-creation, Poland, Netherlands, and Slovenia. When it comes to monitoring, what emerges is that first, a lot of countries today, and this is a novelty, and I think we have heard it from Milan. I think what was striking in the presentation from Milan is even more than the projects they implement is that for every initiative they had metrics. And this is happening all through Europe. Many countries are monitoring adoption through automatic service, not by asking citizens, did you use e-government services, as in the survey that we presented at the beginning, but actually looking at, as Milan does, at transaction and uses this data, and often publishing this data for the public to see. And few countries also have metrics on co-creation. Austria, Sweden, Greece. I think Sweden is the only one who actually has hard data. 80% of public administration in Sweden use co-creation. So this is what happened. Now, what we think should be done next is first move from principle to operational guidelines. There is too often everything goes under the headline of co-creation. We need clear guidelines of what needs to be done, clear guidelines and templates, and they need to be implemented. They need to be ensured compliance of. Second, in-house competence is key. You cannot outsource service design. Of course, you can outsource some part of it, but you need a culture of service design in government. You need to deliver at scale, meaning enforcement mechanism, meaning how to make sure that all departments and then even local administration is part of this trend. You have to focus on adoption rate. Adoption rates is, as we have seen, many countries are focusing on adoption rates, but we need to get better, and this is where real-time data become important. We need to use data produced by the system to see how many people, how much services are used. For every project, we need to be able to see traction and to show traction and show adoption. And we need to work together to build comparative indicators, because it's very useful to have data for Milan or for the UK or for a specific country, but this data become much more useful when they are comparable. So we need to start setting standards to deliver comparable data. Local is an important dimension, often overlooked. If we want the once only principle, if we want Tallinn to happen, if we want the single digital gateway to happen by 2023, we need to support local adoption. We need to make sure that the tools, the metrics, but also the support tools, the digital teams, the toolkits, the guidelines are available at the local level, and the local level receives support. Because it's, you know, when we look at Milan, yeah, of course, it's Milan, but there are more than 80,000 municipalities in Europe, and they are not in the same situation of Milan. If we want to deliver Tallinn, the once only principle and single digital gateway, we need to scale. And this is why digital transformation agency and teams need to be put in place, but they also need power. It's not enough to have a digital team. It needs to have power. And last but not least, be consistent, which means what we have seen in co-creation policy, unfortunately, is that it can be wobbly. It can be a priority from one government, then it can be dismantled by the second government. No one will follow service design guidelines if they disappear, if they are not followed with the change of government. And the same goes for digital teams. No one will take the advice and the support of digital teams if they are not convinced they are there to stay. And I think it's worth noting that the digital team in the UK has been there for several years, and the impact is visible, but after many years of work. I think it was established in 2011, if I remember correctly. So these are the recommendations that we come up. Co-VAL will deliver a lot more: the Digital Summit in Milan, the Scientific Conference in Madrid, policy briefs, research reports. So a lot coming up from the point of view of Co-VAL. And then I promise to be short. I hope I was enough. And we have now 15 minutes for questions and answer. And I see that there are more questions, so bear with me because I have to manage a question myself. Okay. Nice questions. Okay, we have several questions now. I think Costas had to leave. Costas, am I correct?
Yes, actually, I have to leave now for another video conference. Okay. I would like to thank everybody once again, and feel free to come back to us, to the Commission. I will, through Lisbon Council, you can contact the e-government and trust unit for any question or any feedback. It is very, very welcome. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Kostas, for your intervention and for taking part and for staying with us until now. So,
and I'm looking forward to the next meeting, which can become physically under better circumstances. And I think that we'll have all these very, very useful policy recommendations in a brighter background rather than we have it at the moment. Thank you once again.
Wonderful, and see you in Madrid and Milan. Okay, so let's go back to the questions. We have a full set of questions, and they are mostly for Milan and Anna. So, Paolo, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everybody.
Paolo, some questions for the city of Milan. First, from Jenny Nelson, do the data lake only include data from Milan or also from other sources? And I'll add a couple of more so that you can answer them. Two questions from Luca Silves. First, how much of your infrastructure are based on commodity tools rather than custom made? I think Roberta mentioned open source in her presentation. And also, what about if you use commercial cloud services, what about security and governance? So how do you deal with security? Obviously, some of them are technical questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's all. I don't know if you have noted them.
Yeah, I noted them. No, thank you. Very interesting question. I work with Roberta. I'm her advisor for digital transformation in Milan. So yeah, going to the question, data lake. Well, we started, but mainly in the data lake we have the data of the municipality. So pretty much we started by having different silos of different format. So we converge, and we are still converging all dataset in a single data lake that then we use for services. So the idea is we govern our central data lake, and then surely we interact with others, with services, with API. So we take care of our data and the data that we need to protect of our citizen, and then we expand services, but the data lake is our data lake. As far as different technology used, we always look for the best technology available, and that, depending on the need, can be a solution, a shelf solution. It could be a custom tool. It could be an open data custom tool. For example, the interoperability plan is based on an open data, an open software solution. So it depends from services. For example, today we are having a massive number of people working distant with smart working, and for that we use a commercial solution, pretty much plug and playable. It really depends. So we always try to look for the best solution by looking at the service. Other question, there was a question on
security governance of commercial service.
Yeah, okay. Well, there is surely it's a hot topic. We have a dedicated team, of course, for security, and we're adapting security, and we are testing and breaching our services several times. So running tests, running checks, and have a team. I am not fully prepared on this question on what kind of specific tools we used, but of course we tend to retain the data in our database. I'll get back to you on that because I don't have a clear view on that specific technical question.
Excellent.
And other questions? No, I think it's all right.
Yeah, it's all. I have a question, a couple of questions for me. First, Anna, many people thank you very much for the great presentation. So, but no additional question for you. Lucas has some very insightful question. One for me is about about business models. Does it all need to be publicly funded? How can private companies make money off this move to co-creation? So there are many ways, and no, it does not need to be all publicly funded. One of the Denmark is a very interesting case. Obviously, we're not to research this in detail so far, but you point to Denmark. It's a very interesting case because they co-create. because they co-create, because they use, they involve companies from the early stage. This company co-invest. What does it mean co-invest? First, they co-invest in developing solution, because one of the problems, take EIDAS, take others, is that banks have to buy in, service providers have to buy in and invest in this technology, for instance, in EIDAS compliant technology. So to have private providers that invest on the same standards is a very important point. Second, there is a variety of business models. It's not just about public or private. There are many different business models and creative business models, and we were looking at it in Denmark, for instance, because they have a modular approach. Different service providers can deliver part of the service, and they even use a concession-based models where the public sector doesn't pay anything, and the citizens pays directly the company for the specific service that it needs to be delivered, and the company pays a concession fee to government. But there are a variety of methods that have been used. I know in the UK also some impact funding and risk capital has been used in the past. So I think the bottom line is we need to experiment with business model also in the GovTech sector, and we need to open up the possibility for different funding models. And we don't do that. We just start by the assumption that the only funding model possible is procurement. Well, I think that's all. I don't know, there is an additional question on me. What's new, basically? We have 25 years, always the same. Is it always the same? No, it's not. A lot has changed, and we see it in the Tallinn Declaration. We see in how government perceive these things. We see in the digital teams being built into government. There is a lot of action around it, and this is coming to maturity. The models and the methodologies are there. But of course, at the moment, there is a lot of experimentation, a lot of disparate initiatives. We are starting to see the structuring of this. We are starting to see structuring into guidelines, into formal principles, into clear toolkits, into clear and scalable instruments. And this is what is new, scalability, the fact that now it is scaling with different speeds, but everyone feels the need. This is not just an innovation lab in the corner of government. This is something that needs to be mainstream across government. But we're not yet there, and we're working on it with all our partners and hopefully with all of you in the future. So I don't see any new question. If that's the case, I would like to thank everyone. And most of all, thank the city of Milan who took the time to participate. And please have all our support. And from my side, and I want to thank the European Commission, I want to thank Anna for being here. And I look forward to future opportunity for collaboration and for seeing you all, hopefully in Milan and Madrid and in Brussels and everywhere after this crisis is over. Thank you very much for your participation, your question, and your attention. Goodbye.